My parents kicked me out with nothing on my 18th birthday. Years later, they are begging me for help, and I'm going to teach them the same lesson they taught me. I still remember the night I lost everything. It was my 18th birthday. Most kids celebrate with cake, presents, maybe a dinner with family. Me? I came home from my part-time job to find all my stuff in trash bags on the front lawn. My parents stood by the door, arms crossed. My dad had a look of cold indifference, and my mom just sighed like I was a burden she was finally free of. I was confused. I thought maybe they were playing some sick joke. What? What is this? I stammered, my heart pounding. My dad pulled out an envelope and tossed it at my feet. "There's $100 in there," he said flatly. "That should be enough for a bus ticket somewhere." I looked at them, waiting for the punchline. Surely, they weren't serious. I had no savings, no college fund, no place to go. And yet my own parents were throwing me away like garbage. Mom sighed. "You're an adult now. Time to take care of yourself. We did our job." And then, they slammed the door in my face. That night, I sat on the sidewalk in front of what used to be my home, shaking from a mix of rage and devastation. I had nowhere to go, no friends I could call for a couch to crash on, no extended family who would take me in, so I did the only thing I could. I survived. The next 5 years were the hardest of my life. I slept in shelters when I could, park benches when I couldn't. I worked 3 jobs at once, barely making enough to afford a single meal a day. I missed out on college because I couldn't afford tuition, or even a stable address. And my parents? Not a single call. Not a single message. They had moved on with their lives as if I had never existed. I spent nights wondering what I had done to deserve this. Then, after years of struggle, I finally caught a break. I got an entry-level job at a startup. I worked my ass off, no vacations, no days off, just grinding, and slowly everything started to change. Within a decade, I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. I had built a 6-figure career. I owned my own home. I had real friends, people who cared about me. I had everything I once thought was impossible. And then, just when I had finally buried my past, I got a phone call that sent me spiraling back. It was a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, but something in my gut told me to answer. "Hello?" The voice on the other end sent a chill down my spine. It's Mom. I hadn't heard that voice in over 10 years. For a second, I felt like I was 18 again, standing in front of that locked door, begging to be let in. Then she spoke again, and any old feelings of nostalgia vanished. "We need your help." I almost laughed. Now they needed me? "What kind of help?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. There was a pause. Then she sighed. "Your father lost his job. We're behind on the mortgage. The bank is going to foreclose on the house." I let that sit for a moment. She wasn't calling to reconnect. She wasn't calling to say she was sorry. She was calling for money. Money they never once offered me when I was alone and starving. Money they never once sent to check if I was even alive. And now, because their comfortable little world was crumbling, they thought I'd be their savior. I took a slow breath and leaned back in my chair. "How much do you need?" I asked. Her voice brightened. "Oh, thank you. We just need enough to catch up on the mortgage, about $8,000. More than I had ever had when they kicked me out with $100 and a bus ticket. I exhaled slowly and said, "Let me think about it," and then I hung up. I didn't call back. I didn't respond to their follow-up messages. I let them sit in their panic and desperation, the same way they left me to fend for myself years ago. Then a week later, I got a text from my dad. "I know we weren't perfect parents, but we need you. We're still family." Family. That word burned as I read it. Where was family when I was sleeping on park benches? Where was family when I was working 3 jobs just to eat? And now that they had nothing left, they suddenly remembered I existed? I typed out a response, then deleted it. I needed them to feel this fully. So I waited. 2 weeks passed, then a month, and then they sent me a message and said that the house had been foreclosed. They were homeless and living out of a cheap motel, experiencing exactly what they had thrown me into at 18. And you know what? I didn't feel bad. Not even a little bit. One day, weeks later, I ran into my mother at a grocery store. She looked older, worn down, like life had finally caught up to her. She saw me, and her eyes lit up. "Please," she whispered, "we just need a little help getting back on our feet." I stared at her the same way she had stared at me the night she locked the door in my face. Then I smiled, told her I know the feeling, and reached into my pocket and handed her $100 bill, and then I walked about. Sometimes you just got to make sure the bridges are completely burned to the ground. Am I the asshole for having no remorse for my actions or any pity for them?